Okay, so introducing our speaker this afternoon, Chris. Welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us and taking your time today to give us a great presentation. Chris Hudson is the president of Connected Home, Inc., a Wilmington-based smart home integration company serving southern, eastern North Carolina. With over 2 decades of experience and a commitment to simple, user-friendly technology, Chris and his team help owners enjoy comfort, convenience, and peace of mind through custom-designed smart home solutions.
All right. As was mentioned, my name is Chris Hudson. I own Connected Home. We're actually out in Leland. The company's been in business for 15 years now. I've been in the industry for 20-some years, 23, 24, something like that, over half my life. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do that. Aha. All right. So like I said, I've been in the industry for over half my life, 20-some years now. And I have encouraged everyone in our company to be CEDIA certified. CEDIA is an industry organization for us that stands for Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association. In our industry, there's not a lot of governing rules or regulations. So CEDIA helps set those standards. They also offer certifications to help elevate everybody in the industry. I have 3 of those myself, and I try to encourage everybody in my team to have them as well, or at least one of them. I also sit on the certification committee for CEDIA, so I help write the exams. And now that all the exams are globally accredited, we have a lot of rules we have to follow for that, but it takes up some of my time. I am also not a professional speaker, if you haven't figured that out yet. I took a public speaking class in college. That was quite a while ago. I treated this assignment the same I did back then, and I did my homework last night. Thank you, AI. All right. So I figured for all you guys, we just want to break things down into the basics for the technology that affects you guys on a daily basis. Some of this, a lot of you may already know, especially if I've had any dealings with you guys in the past. I saw Peter Renfrey walk in. He knows. So some of it's basic, but I wanted to make sure we covered all those basics. And like I mentioned, we'll kind of break down each section at the end and ask questions about that particular section before moving on. I kind of figured a lot of this is going to be a lot more interactive Q&A than probably the norm, just because I'm sure you guys have plenty of questions about stuff. So when it comes to home technology, no matter what you're talking about, whether it be smart thermostat, security system, just watching TV, everything nowadays is related to the network, right? Everything connects to the internet, and if that doesn't work well, nothing works well. So we consider that kind of like the foundation of everything. Make sure the network is good first, and then add everything else to it. So on the basics of the network side of things, the first part of that connection is your internet provider. So out in St. James, you guys typically have, depending on the area, maybe up to 3 choices: Spectrum, Focus, or AT&T. I think AT&T is probably in the least amount of areas. Focus and Spectrum are pretty much throughout. Of these 3, there's 2 different technologies that they use. Spectrum is still your typical old school coax cable internet provider, and both Focus and AT&T are fiber. When given the choice, fiber is definitely what you want. When you're on a coax old school cable network, you are sharing your connection with your neighbors. Not in a security kind of way, but in a broadband kind of way, in a how much capacity you can do. So if you're on Spectrum and you've noticed that it goes slower in the evenings when everybody else is using it, that's just a factor of the technology. That's not necessarily anything anybody's doing wrong. Nothing Spectrum's doing wrong. It's just the way the technology works. Basically, everybody on your street shares a certain amount of bandwidth that is shared. When you are on a fiber connection, like Focus or AT&T, you get a dedicated connection. So if you pay for a gig, you get a gig. And it doesn't matter what your neighbors are doing, you get that gig. Obviously, that's a big advantage. There are no worrying about like peak times and it's slowing down because everybody else is using the internet. The other big advantage on the fiber side of things there is when you're picking your speed, whether it be, let's say you're with Spectrum and you're picking your internet speed, and maybe they're promising 300 megabits down, right? That speed is just how quickly you can download something. They have a separate speed for how fast you can upload something. And with cable internet, it's pretty low. It's like 300 down may only be 10 megs up. For your normal web browsing, email, that kind of stuff, that doesn't matter. But if you start adding video doorbells and cameras and things that are uploading video a lot, it's going to matter a lot. With fiber, it is the same amount that you're getting down, you get up as well. So if you pay for a gig down, you also get a gig up, which means all your cameras and everything will be able to connect a lot faster and work a lot better. So when given the choice, fiber is always going to be better. Granted, there are pros and cons to every cable company, and I always say nobody likes their cable company. No matter which one you pick, they're going to eventually make you mad, and you're going to want to switch to the other, but then that company is just going to make you mad 2 years later. It doesn't matter. Pick the better technology. All right. So once that internet gets into your house, you have to figure out how to get it to all your devices, right? Nowadays, Wi-Fi is the main way of doing that. Hardwired is still a bit better. The more things you can hardwire around the house, the better it's going to work. But everybody wants things to be wireless nowadays, and the whole saying of everything's wireless and you don't need wires doesn't have a lot of truth to it, but it still applies to a lot of things. When it comes to getting Wi-Fi to cover the entire house, usually that needs more than just a router. So most of you probably have already experienced having some form of device that extends that Wi-Fi range. So basically, there's 3 different types of devices that I'd break it down into. There's Wi-Fi repeaters, which have been around the longest, and that just extends your existing Wi-Fi network. So you're still using whatever Wi-Fi you originally had. You buy another device, you plug it in, ideally halfway between where you're trying to get it to reach. It will pick up the Wi-Fi signal and then create a new Wi-Fi signal so that it goes further. Right? Which, by the way, that is a mistake I see all the time, whether it be with Wi-Fi repeaters or mesh networks. Someone will have a computer in the far side of the house. It's getting a weak signal, so they buy an extender or a mesh system or something to make it work better. And then they put that repeater directly beside that device they're trying to make work better. Well, if the computer or the TV had a weak signal, so does the Wi-Fi repeater have a weak signal, right? So that device may show that it has a full connection. Well, it's got a full connection to a Wi-Fi repeater that has a very poor connection. So it still doesn't work well. You always want to put those devices halfway between, ideally, halfway between where you're trying to get it to reach, so that the device starts off with a good signal, and then hopefully it reaches to where you're trying to get it to reach to. So with the most basics, like Wi-Fi repeaters, that's typically like you go to Walmart, Costco, Best Buy, wherever, and you pay like $50, and you get this one little device that you plug in, and you're still using your existing Wi-Fi. Typically, your devices don't roam very well between those. So like if you're on your laptop and you move from part of your house to the other part of the house, it may take it some time to switch over, if it does switch over. The next better technology would be mesh networks, and it's probably a term that most of you have heard nowadays. They've become very popular. For a mesh network system, you usually buy something that comes as like a pack of 3. It is probably the most common. And with mesh, you are completely replacing your existing Wi-Fi, creating and putting something new in for the Wi-Fi, and each of those 3 devices are wirelessly talking to each other. Unlike the Wi-Fi repeaters, where you're just creating an extension of your old network, you're creating a new one, and each of those 3 devices wirelessly talk to each other. That's why it's a mesh network, because it can all talk together, and you don't lose as much connection between each device. Rules still apply. If the device is too far away from the previous one, it still has a weak signal. It's still going to repeat a weak signal. But you can buy more of them and spread them around your house as much as you want. There's really no limit. If 3 devices didn't cover the house well, buy another one. If 4 doesn't cover it, buy another one. They all talk to each other. They all extend the network. The third way would be wired access points. If any of you have gotten a network from us, this is most likely what you have. Anytime you can run a wire, it's always better, right? So think of wired access points similar to the way you do of like a mesh network where there's multiple devices, but each one of those is wired back to the router. So there is no having to wirelessly repeat. There is no worrying about what signal it got before it got to that spot of the house. It will have just as strong of a signal as it would at the router because it has a wire connecting the two. So if you have a bonus room or a frog and it was getting no Wi-Fi signal before, you could put that access point in that area with a wire ran to it, and that frog would then have full 100% Wi-Fi signal strength. So unlike the other 2 where you have to go like halfway between the last point, that doesn't matter because it has a wire ran to it. All right. I swear I'm not getting too technical in this stuff. We're not going much deeper than this. All right. When you buy these things, whether it be the access points or the mesh network or the Wi-Fi repeaters, you will see marketing on them, labeling them as nowadays either Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 7. Or if it's an old device on clearance, it might say Wi-Fi 5 or it'll say Wi-Fi AC. Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi AC are the same thing. They just changed how they label these things. They simplified it. So it used to be that they would have letters after Wi-Fi to indicate the generation. And then they just switched it to numbering because it's a lot simpler. So instead of Wi-Fi AC, it was changed to Wi-Fi 5. And then there's 6 and 7. Each one of those is a generation of Wi-Fi. So 5 was out first, and then came 6, and then came 7, and there was plenty of stuff before that. 5 is pretty much dated nowadays. Don't get me wrong, it still works, and if you get it on clearance and you didn't have other Wi-Fi 6 devices, you're fine, and it will work well enough. It just won't be as fast as what a newer generation would be. Wi-Fi 6 is probably your most common nowadays. 7 is still very new. If you were to go to buy a device today and you want it to last the longest, you would buy Wi-Fi 7. If you wanted to save a little money now, you would buy Wi-Fi 6. That's basically all it boils down to. If the pocketbook can afford it, Wi-Fi 7 is the better way to go. Otherwise, Wi-Fi 6. The main area you'll get into trouble is Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 and 7 are not interchangeable. 5 is its own thing. 6 and 7 can work together. But Wi-Fi 5 does not work with 6 or 7. At least not well. It will cause problems. Things won't connect properly. It's not fun. So like when we have to upgrade part of a network and we're having to work with existing equipment that's still there and we're not, the client's not ready to upgrade those Wi-Fi 5 devices yet, we have to dumb down the newer device to work to the specs of Wi-Fi 5 to make it work together. So just avoid Wi-Fi 5. If you still have Wi-Fi 5, it's time to upgrade. How do you know? Either if you can find the manual for the device, it will tell you. If you can find the model number, we can look it up. If you can't find either of those, it's probably time for a new one. All right. So I told you I didn't want to get too deep into things before we start hitting questions. The questions kind of already started. So
How easy is it to convert your home from a coax old spectrum to a focus kind of a fiber optic?
Good question.
How easy is it?
It is a little bit harder now than what it used to be. Focus and AT&T now both require the fiber to be ran all the way to the inside of the house. And typically speaking, their techs, and I mean this in the nicest way, rightfully so, will take the easiest approach. I mean rightfully so because it's not their job to run a fiber all through the walls of your house to get it to where you actually want it to be. But that usually means they're just going to poke a hole in the house, and that modem or router is going to be located on that wall that is the closest to where they can get it. Sometimes that means it ends up in a garage. Sometimes it ends up in a bedroom behind a nightstand. It just depends. Ideally, obviously, you'd want to run a fiber from the outside to a center part of the house. Just realize that the cable companies are most likely not going to do that, at least not for free. I think Focus does at least offer that you can pay them to wall fish. If not, you would hire a company like us to come out and run those wires and relocate things. In the past, let's say 2 years ago or so, Focus used an external fiber router. That was a lot easier because that connected to Cat 5 or Cat 6 wiring that most people already have running to the outside of the house. But they got rid of those external ones, and now it's all internal. You sometimes can find a tech that may still have an external one on his truck, but those are limited to what they can do. Their fastest speed is a gig, and nowadays Focus is offering up to 5 gigs. Not that you need 5 gigs, you do not, but just know that you would be capped off at a gig if you have the old external fiber route modem. The ones of you that have those probably know you have that on the outside of your house. It's a box, and then there's like a battery pack beside of it. And you may have noticed that when it rains, sometimes your internet stops working. By code, those always had to be hooked up to a GFCI outlet, the same kind of outlet you have like in your bathroom where there's a little test and reset button, because this is an external outlet, and it's exposed to, or can be exposed to water, so it needs to be able to trip itself. And if it's a heavy rain, sometimes they trip, and then your internet stops working, and you have to go hit the reset button. If you didn't know that's what you have to do, that's what you got to do. Yeah.
I'm going to bring
Speed's important for Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Speed's important for Wi-Fi. And the third was the best, the wired access points. Mm-hmm. Can you move to that third option, the wired access points, after the fact? I mean, is that a...
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's something you guys could come in and do without tearing up walls and that kind of stuff.
Correct, yeah. If it's the wired access points, it's still the same wire. It's just swapping a device. If it's a wireless system like the mesh, then it's just unplug one and plug the other in. But yes, you can easily just replace that older technology with the newer technology. That does not need to change anything with your internet provider.
Can you talk a little bit about the downside for a smart home when your network goes down?
Sure. So it depends on the devices. And there's a difference between the network going down and the internet going down. Internet going down, there's nothing coming into your house, right? So nothing's getting out of the house either. So if it's something as simple as like a smart thermostat, you're not going to be able to remotely, when you're away from the house, check or adjust that temperature. Typically not a huge deal, but something to be aware of. If the network is down, that would mean like the Wi-Fi and everything's not working, right? So not only can we not talk to the internet, the devices inside the house can't talk to each other. And if you have a bunch of smart home devices that are made to talk to each other, well, now they can't. Typically, that doesn't mean anything detrimental. It usually just means that the kind of automated stuff that you set up, like lights automatically turning off when you arm the alarm, that part won't work. But the individual devices themselves would still work. Like that smart thermostat, even though you can't use your app when the internet's down, you can still walk over to it and adjust it. So for the most part, you can still treat these things as if they weren't smart with no internet. And even with no network, you can still do the basics. To answer your question. All right. Got one up here? There. Wait, she's back there first.
They give you different options for how much, 500, 250, 1 gig.
Yep.
Any suggestions on what you should be paying for?
Yep, absolutely. My recommendation nowadays is a gig. And honestly, that's still probably more than over half of you actually need. But that usually just economically makes the most sense. They usually run that speed on special, or at most it costs a couple dollars more than the speed below it. But once you go above a gig, more than likely, you don't have any devices in your house that actually support that faster speed. So it won't matter. As they go from a gig to 2.5 and 5. I can probably promise you every single one of your routers and everything that you have in your house right now won't do more than the gig, unless you upgrade everything when you pay for that faster speed as well. And you don't need it. There's no reason whatsoever why you need more than a gig. Streaming 4K on Netflix takes like 14 megabits. For those of you who don't know, a gig is 1,024. So, about a tenth of the speed is all you need to actually stream 4K. Now, granted, if you stream 4K on 5 different TVs and you have 6 different cameras uploading to the internet, you need you're getting closer to needing that gig, but you're still not needing more than the gig.
We have 2 Alexas, 1 Hey Google, a smart switch, a thermostat I've never figured out. So I'm getting back to the internet versus network going down.
Yep.
Let's forget the internet. On the network, when we can talk from one Alexa, which is on another floor, to another, we go, wow. So is that a network thing, or is it, because Alexa likes you to hook up to the Wi-Fi?
I'm pretty sure with Alexa, if the internet's down, it's not going to work at all.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, I'm saying pretty sure because I'm not 100%, but I'm like 95% sure that it uses the internet for the voice to text conversion so that it knows on the back end what to do. Like to actually understand what you're saying, it uses a cloud server. So when the internet's not down,
Okay.
it can't understand what you're saying.
So many of these devices depend on our phone apps to control, which is confusing to us. I know I can do I can say, Alexa, find my phone. Mm-hmm. And if I've put the phone number in it, right, mm-hmm. it'll call it. My son tells Alexa to do a shopping list, and when he gets to the store, he's got it on his phone. This is I just want you to explain why this works. in a sentence or two. Yeah.
Magic.
What do you say?
Magic.
That's what I think.
I didn't write the code. I don't know. Hey, Pete.
Hi, Chris. How long has IP6 really been around, commonly used everywhere?
Commonly? It's been around, but it's very rarely used, especially in residential.
IP6?
IP6, yeah. This is probably getting way more technical than what any of the rest of you know what we're talking about, and that's okay. The IP4 is still by far the most commonly used. There's some issues with IP6 that make it not as friendly to use, especially for just traditional residency stuff. To simplify things as much as possible, the only time that this is ever even remotely a worry is if you had 1,000 devices in your house. So we're not, don't worry about it. Okay, so as we get to the smart home stuff, we're going to kind of break it down into categories. I'm going to start with security and safety type stuff, and then we'll kind of go on from there. So most common with these. Even for those that don't have security systems or anything, it seems like just about everybody has a video doorbell nowadays. If you don't have a video doorbell, they're pretty nice to have. But, you know, there's a little bit of privacy that's given up with it sometimes. Just be aware. Yeah. This would be like the most common brand one would be Ring. You've probably all heard of a Ring video doorbell. They just replace your existing doorbell button. They don't take any special wiring or anything. There are ones that can be wired differently, but for the most part, for what you guys would be concerned with, you just swap the doorbell button with the Ring camera video doorbell, and it connects to your Wi-Fi, right? At that point, you got an app on your phone. You'll get an alert if somebody walks up to your door or if there's a package left, or unfortunately, if the moth flies in front of it at nighttime, constantly. Right. They're getting a little bit better. There's some AI that gets put onto it nowadays so that it can actually say, this is a person, this is an animal, this is your package, this is your package being stolen. Yeah. So hopefully you can turn off just the generic motion alerts so you don't get the moth flapping around, and just get the important stuff. Right. So Ring is the most common one, but there are also better, more professional solutions if you were dealing with something like what we would put in. We sometimes do Ring too. There's nothing wrong with Ring. There's just other options too. These things do typically record in the cloud. So as long as you have internet, you will have the recordings, right? So when it sees motion or sees that person or whatever, it will record a video clip. That clip's probably only, let's see, with Ring, I think it's, 15, 20 seconds long, something like that. And they store it in the cloud for, I think, 30 days. You have to pay a subscription for that with Ring. It's not a lot. It's like $3 a camera or somewhere along those lines. The main thing to know is if your internet is down, you do not have a recording. Pros and cons to everything. On the bright side, no one can steal your recordings, right? They come up and they knock your Ring doorbell or whatever off of the front door. Well, you still have a video in the cloud of them knocking your Ring doorbell off your front door. They can't physically take those recordings away from you. Unlike like a traditional camera where you may have a recording device in the house, and if they were to take that recording device, you then don't have any recordings. When it's in the cloud, they can't take it. But you do have to have internet. For the security cameras themselves, a lot of that same logic still applies. You can have a local device to record it, or it can record in the cloud. You can have indoor cameras, or you can have outdoor cameras. From what we see, the demand for indoor cameras is a lot less compared to the demand for outdoor cameras. Just depends on the person. Some people don't like having cameras inside their house. Some people do want the cameras inside your house. If you think you want the cameras inside your house, but you really don't want to give up the privacy, there are ways. You know, we can program something that will disable the camera when you're at home if you have a security system kind of thing. But generally speaking, if you have a camera in your house, it's recording unless you've done something to stop it from recording. Cameras outside do use infrared light to see at night. Infrared light is something we can't see, but bugs can. So put your camera that's outside somewhere where you can reach it, because you will have to at some point clean off spider webs off of the camera, because they see the light and all the bugs flap around it, and then the spider builds the web to catch them all. So don't put your camera up 3 stories high, please. Let's see. For a security system, I think probably most of you at some point have probably had a security system in one of your houses, right? So that's typically something that has sensors on the doors, windows, motion, whatever, and will call somebody when somebody breaks in. Pretty simple and straightforward, right? You pay monthly to have that monitored. Almost everybody's homeowner's insurance will give them a discount if you give them the certificate that says you have a monitored security system. And even if you aren't worried about somebody breaking into your house, it can still be a good thing to have, because we could also monitor for fire or carbon monoxide or water leaks. So you may not be worried about somebody breaking in, but it's still good to monitor for those other things. As we get more into the other smart home stuff, it's also a security system is really nice for integrating with the rest of it. I think I quickly threw out an example earlier of, what was it? I think I said lights turning off when the security's armed. You know, the security system itself is a very easy indicator on if you're home or if you're away, because you've armed it or you've disarmed it. And then we can trigger things to happen based off that, right? We'll get into that more later. On the sensor side of things, I just kind of hit these ones, but like I said, even if you're not worried about intrusion, you could have sensors for smoke, you could have sensors for carbon monoxide, water leak detectors. There are panic buttons, and then there are also medical alert buttons. So you can have the typical pinned in, fallen and can't get up kind of thing. But those can also be buttons located anywhere. There are also, if any of you have a more elderly family individual that you're looking after that maybe lives on their own and you need to keep an eye on them, you can use a security system for that aging in place, keeping an eye on that person and making sure that certain things are happening. They make sensors to make sure they've gotten out of bed or they've gotten out of their favorite chair, or what would typically be a door sensor, but you put it on a cabinet door to make sure that they've opened it up and take their medication in the morning. And then you would get the alert if that thing didn't happen. So not always about monitoring for somebody breaking in, but it can be used for monitoring to make sure that things that are supposed to happen are happening. Questions about security? And where's the mic? Should come around in just a second. There's one over here.
Does the Ring or any other kind of video doorbell have to actually be put where your doorbell is? My handyman put it 2 feet above there so it would get a better view all the way out to the street as opposed to just at the door.
So it's a yes and a no. Rings, they do make models that are battery powered, so it doesn't have to have the existing wire to power it. The downside there is you're going to have to take it off the wall every few weeks, or I think they've gotten a little bit better now, maybe it's 3 to 4 weeks, and hook it up to a charger, the charger back up, and then go put it back. So it can be completely wireless. Ideally, you're replacing the doorbell button because there's a wire there that's going to power that Ring, and then you don't have to worry about that. They also make a version that has a solar panel on it, so if it did have to be wireless, and if where the doorbell is going is in a spot that will get sunlight, that's another way of keeping it charged. Yes. Well,
I bought a battery one.
hang on one second. She's coming around the mic again. Say it one more time.
Sorry. Do you have to have the special Ring that it has to be hooked up to the doorbell to make it work? I bought a Ring that is battery operated. Can I hook that to the doorbell and will it then charge that way, or am I still going to have to charge the battery itself?
I am 95% sure that all of their battery operated models can still be hardwired. So the hardwired is like the default method, and then they can work off of a battery if needed. The Ring cameras also have a very wide angle view. Most of them are about 180 degrees wide, but it's also pretty wide up and down too. Not a full 180, but pretty wide. So typically, you don't really have to worry about moving it higher up to see the person at your front door. Now, if it's to look over an obstacle so it sees further out into the street or front yard or whatever, that's a different story. But if it's just about seeing who's at the door and making sure you see their full face and everything, you don't usually need to move that up to get that view. Yep.
Hi. I have a Simply Safe system throughout my house, and I have a Simply Safe doorbell camera. The cameras everywhere else work very well, but very often if I'll get a message saying that somebody came to the front door and, well, we didn't get a video, it didn't process. So, and there's a mesh system right there in the hallway. It's probably 5 feet away from it. So any reason that you can think of it works sometimes, but not all the time.
How far away is that mesh piece from the other mesh piece? Like I said, you don't want it right beside the device it's trying to get to. You want it more halfway between where the other one is and where it is. So it could be that the mesh that's by the door is already picking up a weak Wi-Fi signal, and then it's trying to rebroadcast a weak Wi-Fi signal. You may need to move that mesh further in.
It's fairly close to the router.
Okay.
There's a wall in between, but it's probably maybe 10 feet away from that.
Okay, that's good. And it may not be that that's what it is. We don't, as a company, we don't mess with Simply Safe because it's fully a DIY type product. And while we do some DIY products when it comes to security and life safety stuff, we do zero DIY products because of liability. So I don't have a lot of hands-on experience with Simply Safe.
It works everywhere else around my house very well.
Good. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. I'm over here in the front. If you're in the middle of a forest and you fall, will your Apple Watch call for help?
Possibly.
So it all depends on if there's Wi-Fi where you're...
Wi-Fi, no.
Oh.
But it still needs a type of cell signal. But most of the iPhones nowadays, if it's within the past few years, do have a satellite connection that's purely for emergency, like 911 kind of calling. So if you've ever seen like your cell signal completely drop off on your phone, but it says SOS, that will still work for calling 911, including the fall detection. So if you're deep in the forest, as long as it still says that SOS and you have your phone on you, then yes, your Apple Watch should send the signal to your phone, and your phone would call 911.
Apple has, and it's been a while, but I have a couple of like little, I forget what they call them, little Apple charms or plugs or something.
AirTags.
Thank you. And you can put them on things. And I think I heard that the way they work is they find another signal and work off that.
Yes, anybody, for the AirTags, it will talk to any iPhone. So if you had an AirTag on something and you left it in this room and then you left the room, as long as somebody else in this room has an iPhone, you will still be able to see that that AirTag is in this room.
But they wouldn't.
The other people?
Well, I'm thinking, I know people put them in suitcases and then maybe they're in another state, but they can still see where that is, but that's working off somebody else's?
Yep, that is an Apple thing. It is still...
I think we're back to magic.
Yes. There's no real privacy concerns there, though, because they don't even see anything with it or do anything with it. The only time that they would know that there is one there, and this is a safety thing, is if that AirTag is following with them. Like if somebody maliciously put an AirTag on somebody to track them, that person would get a notification on their phone that says an AirTag is moving with them.
Oh.
So that they would know.
This is a good thing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a video camera. And my front door is on an elevated porch in the center of the house, roughly. So I probably would want a camera there. But my driveway is on the right side as you face my house, kind of at an angle. And I can only see from the house, like the beginning third of the driveway. Is there another camera I could put on the corner of my garage angled out there that would let me observe most of the driveway?
There is. So in the most perfect scenario, we'd be able to run a wire to it, and then it would be hardwired to your router and for power. But if you can't run a wire, let's see, it doesn't have to be Ring. There are other brands that make it as well, but there are floodlight cameras. If you have a floodlight in that area, those literally replace the floodlight with a new floodlight that has a camera on it, but uses that power that's already going to the floodlight to power the camera. Again, the Wi-Fi has to be good there, though, so got to make sure the Wi-Fi is good, but that would solve the power issue. The other approach is you can do a solar panel for the cameras. Only downside with the solar panel is you just got to make sure that you're putting it in an area that actually gets good sunlight, and it just doesn't look as nice.
They would be two independent cameras.
They
One on the.
They would be two cameras. They would, if you stick in the same ecosystem, so if you put a Ring doorbell on and you get a Ring floodlight camera, they're going to be on the same app and under the same account, so that you can easily see them both, but it would be two separate cameras.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to our next section.
All right. Okay, so next on the smart home stuff, we will hit the comfort and convenience side of things. That'd be smart lighting, thermostats, video calling, and tablet apps. What was video calling? I told you I used AI for this last night. I don't know why video calling. I didn't catch that before. All right. I think that was just on there from leftover. Smart lighting would be controlling your lights from phone or from voice or from a schedule that you set on your phone. Same thing with thermostats. You can control them from a phone or from a voice or part of a different system. Motorized shades is a nice one. If you're like me, I hate walking into a dark house. If you have motorized shades, set them on a schedule, have them automatically open up at a certain time every morning, have them automatically close maybe 15 minutes before sunset. And then you never have to touch them. If you have a security system, you can also tie that to the security system so that they automatically close when you arm the alarm in a way. And then if it's daytime and you disarm the alarm, automatically open. Obviously, if it's nighttime, don't open the shades. But it's nice because once it's programmed in, you never have to touch it. Same thing can be true of the lighting if you wanted your lights to work off of a schedule. And then you have smart door locks. The door locks come in handy for remotely letting somebody into the house if you ever needed to. They have their own convenience for your own personal need, like not needing a key on you and being able to type in a code, or if the door lock is tied to the security system, depending on the security system. One of the ones that we use, the security system Bluetooth pairs to your phone. So then when your phone gets within range, it automatically disarms. And if the door lock is tied to that and programmed to, the door would automatically unlock. All you did was just get close enough with your phone. But as far as remotely letting somebody in, if you have like a pet sitter or a house sitter, you can give them their own code. And then depending on the system, you often can set when that code can be used. So let's say they're supposed to be there every Wednesday in the morning. You would say that this code is their code, and it only works on Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then that code won't work any other time. And you'd get a notification, or at least look in the history and be able to see when that code was used. And if you have more than one person, when each of those codes are used. So very nice, very convenient, especially for ones that aren't full-time in their house. If you have a second home, vacation home, whatever, it comes in really handy. The lighting side of things, when it comes to smart home stuff, is my personal favorite, because that is one item of your house that you use every single day, right? You may not always use your speakers, or you may not always use the security system, whatever, but your lights turn on and off every single day. Being able to go to bed at night and hit one button that says good night or whatever, and it turns all the lights in the house off is very, very nice. You know? Or leaving the house and arm the alarm in a way and all the lights turn off and you didn't have to go around and turn all the lights off is a very, very nice thing. When, I'm sure she hates me telling this story. When we were in our first starter home right out of college, it was a tiny house. You know, it was not a literal tiny house, but 1,100 square feet, 2-bedroom. It was small. But doing what I do, we were in it for 11 years because we bought right before the crash. I decked it out. Every single piece of home automation you could think of, I put in there because it's what I do. That meant that we had control over every single light. Fast forward to 6 years ago, 7 years, something like that. We moved into the new house. I hadn't had a chance to fully deck out the house at that point yet. It was like the first or second day in the house. We go to leave, and I arm the alarm, and then my wife's like, what do you mean we have to go around and turn off all the lights? And I was like, that's a completely normal thing to have to do. But she wasn't used to it. So the thing that gets equated to in our industry is, it used to be that power windows on the car was considered lazy. You could just crank it. Now we're all used to it, and nobody would ever go back to cranking their window. Same thing. You get used to conveniences. So lighting, I like a lot. Being able to hit one button, have it all turn off, or walk into a kitchen and hit one button that says bright or relax or whatever it may be, and have all the lights in that kitchen adjust to the preset dimming level that you want them all to be, instead of flipping 5 or 6 different light switches and setting 5 or 6 different dimmers just to get it to where you want it to be every time. So yeah, those lighting scenes can also be tied to the shades. So your bright scene can open up the shades when the lights turn on and all that stuff. I'm probably getting deeper into the automation stuff, which is later in the slide. So I'm going to stop with that now. Let's see. Talking more about the lighting stuff. Already mentioned the voice control. Just mentioned the lighting scenes. Talked about doing it with automation and on a schedule. Circadian rhythm. Not going to get too deep into this, and we'll openly admit of all the items we talk about, this is the big pocketbook item. It's not cheap to do because you probably are replacing every light in a given area with lights that aren't necessarily cheap. Circadian rhythm means that all the lights in your house, or all the lights in the given area, can adjust the color temperature of the light to match with what time of day it is, right? So if you've ever gone, or of course you have, when you go to the store and you buy a light bulb, and you buy either like the warm white or the cool white, and you take it home, and it either looks too yellow or it looks too blue. Or maybe it looks right during one part of the day, but then as the evening progresses, it looks like you're in an office building, right? Your eyes are adjusting to the light coming in through the windows, and that light changes throughout the day. In the morning, it's very warm. Around noon, 1, 2 o'clock, it's very, very cool. And then as the evening progresses, it starts warming up again. With lights that can adjust, it's called tunable white, the lights can do the same thing. And when it's set up on a circadian rhythm schedule, it would automatically happen. So that when you wake up in the morning, you're not hit in the face with these blue lights that look like an office building. But when it gets closer to middle of the day and you're trying to focus and do work around the house, it is that kind of, can be that kind of office building lighting, because that's what helps you focus. And then as the evening progresses, it starts naturally winding you down with warmer white and dimming down a little bit to mimic that natural sunlighting that we don't always get when we're stuck inside all day. Very cool thing, very nice to have. Like I said, it does require replacing all those lights with special lights, so it can get up there a bit. But it's really cool to see. Let's see. All right. Thermostat side of things is to be like your Nest thermostats or Ecobees. You probably all have seen smart thermostats at this point. You probably have one, or you may even just have like a basic Honeywell one that has Wi-Fi that the builder put in, and you have an app, or maybe it has Wi-Fi, but you never actually connected it to the Wi-Fi, but it is capable. But a lot of thermostats nowadays, pretty standard for it to have some smarts to it. It'll connect to the Wi-Fi so that you can use an app to control it or use voice to control it. You can set that schedule from the app, so you don't have to go into the thermostat itself and go through the old school menus trying to set what it does every single day, Monday through Friday, whatever, on this tiny screen of the thermostat. A lot easier to do on the app. And some of them will automatically learn how you're using it and mimic that. For a lot of you guys, you don't want it to mimic how you use it. That works great for someone who works Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and they're coming and going every day at the same time. But for someone who's retired and at home all day, your days are different. You don't want it to automatically set a schedule. So if you do have a Nest, turn that off. It's a setting. if you wonder why the temperature in your house gets weird during certain parts of the day, it probably learned an odd schedule because you went and played pickleball or something at that time of day. Yeah. If you do still work 8 to 5 and leave the house at a given time, or maybe it's not work, maybe you just leave 8 to 5 or whenever, same time every day of the week, sure, use the smart schedule. Otherwise, probably not a good fit. All right, motorized shades, kind of cover this with the lighting side of things. They can automatically automatically open and close on schedules based off an app, everything. One part of it I didn't hit earlier is if you have windows that are too high up to normally reach, that's a great reason to have motorized shades on those windows. Since you can't get up there and reach the cord or normally be able to open and close that window, being able to do them from a remote or an app or voice is beneficial when you can't reach it. Locks, I think I already talked about that part. So questions on the smart home stuff on the comfort and convenience side of things.
We have some of those motorized shades, and the guy that installed them said he could only get a 2.4 gigahertz signal from the router, or he couldn't get a 2.4 from our router with Focus. He could only get 5. It works sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. Is that how most routers are now? Is just a single speed or bandwidth?
Yes and no.
Okay.
That is how a lot of lower grade consumer routers are. So this goes back to the network side of things, and I will try to keep this as simple as possible. But most routers usually have 2 frequencies that they work on. There's 2.4 and there's 5. 2.4 goes further, 5 goes faster, right? But some older devices are in general just some smart devices just because they use cheaper Wi-Fi radios in them. It's just kind of a standard thing for them to use the cheaper Wi-Fi radios. Only support 2.4. They don't support 5. A lot of the routers that are out that will come free from your cable company, or even some that you may go out and buy on your own, will have both of those frequencies working at the same time on the same Wi-Fi name. And you may not have the option in the settings of the router to separate it. Right. That's when you run into those problems with some of those smart devices. It wouldn't just be with shades, it could be other things as well. If something only works on 2.4 and you're not able to separate it, that device may or may not be able to reliably only join that 2.4 since it's being broadcast at the same time as the other. Yes, a better router. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one that Focus gave us originally.
Yep. Yeah. General good habit when you're setting up like a professional grade router is to separate those 2 networks. So like for us, when we do it, if the network name was, I don't know, Bill's House, whatever, we would also have a network named Bill's House 5G. So the regular one would be the 2 and the other one would be the 5G. It works in the same way, but at least your device can choose, or you can choose which one your device joins. It comes in very handy when troubleshooting because you can kind of help narrow down where the problem is.
How often should you contact your internet provider and question them about the efficacy of your routers or something new, better that you should get?
Well, the best answer I could give is don't use their router. They're going to give you the cheapest thing they can get away with giving you because they don't charge you for it, right? That's just good enough that you don't call them up constantly to deal with it. Spend a little bit of money, get something better, and it will work a lot better for the rest of your stuff. What's best? So what's best? Yeah. That's a dangerous question. Well, what's best for one isn't best for all. I mean, if we were going like best, I mean, most people look at like Ruckus for Wi-Fi, but that's nothing you're going to buy for residents, so we're not going to get into that. As far as normal consumer and maybe a little bit better grade, we've had a lot of good luck with Eero lately. If you're looking for something that you can pick up and put in yourself, Eero, E-E-R-O, those work really well. They make wired access points, but they also have mesh. So if you don't have wires ran, you can still use them. If you do get the mesh one, there is a model that says tri-band on them. Get that. I'm trying not to get too deep on this stuff. Remember how I just said most routers have a 2.4 and a 5? So that's dual band. There's 2 of them. The tri-band ones have a separate band that is just for them wirelessly talking to each other. So normally when a mesh network wirelessly talks to each other, you lose some bandwidth because it's using the same connection that you want for internet and whatever else to talk to each other on the separate units. When it's tri-band, it's separated. It doesn't take away from that.
Oh, another question over here.
Sorry, I have Eero 6 Plus mesh, and it's a few years old. So, but I have each, what do you call it, pod or whatever, plugged into an Ethernet port, which of course connects to the gateway, which is connected to the Focus fiber. Is mine, should I upgrade to the tri-band, or, because I still don't get perfect coverage, but I get great coverage?
So tri-band in your instance won't matter.
Okay.
Because you're not wirelessly talking to each other.
Okay.
You
So do I have wired access points, or do I have mesh?
You technically have a mesh unit that you're using as a wired access point, which isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I still have the same Eero units at my house. I think, well, I think mine are the 6E plus, but whatever. There is one trick though that Eero recommends, or one caveat, I should say. Eero wants to serve as the router. So if you still have Focus, if you still have the Focus router and then you hook up the Eero, it's not working ideally. Okay, so she's turned the routing function off on her Focus router. It's called bridge mode. There's still one other thing that technically isn't the way that Eero recommends with what you have going right now, unless there's another piece there that you haven't told me yet. The Eero wants to be the first device on the network. So how are you splitting it off of that router to go to each one of those Eero nodes? Do you know?
Like I said, each node is plugged into an RJ11, an Ethernet.
Okay, and then those Ethernet ports are plugged into your router, into the Focus?
Correct.
Okay.
Wouldn't they be, do you want me to ask you this later?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, Eero stuff, Eero wants to be first on the network, so there should be one Eero, and then you come off of that to connect to the others. You don't want to come off of your router to multiple Eeros, all going back to the router. Little technical thing, the way I'll know how they do it.
Is there any more questions? Anybody? Okay.
All right. All right, audio video side of things. This is where we started. We used to just be the speaker guys. Now we have to know all this other stuff. Speaker guy was easy. This is not. All right, so biggest thing for a lot of you guys nowadays when it comes to the audio video side of things, you've probably all started to experience cable boxes are going away, and you're with streaming services now, for better or worse. It definitely has its benefits. Streaming is typically a lot cheaper than having those cable boxes, and you don't have to worry about cable boxes. But there are some downsides as well. But before we get into that part, your TV has to be able to view that app. Whether that be using apps built into the TV, or if it's an older TV, or even if it's a new TV, you could use a separate device to view those. So like a Fire Stick or a Roku, something that connects to the TV, and then that's an input on your TV that you choose. By the way, that's always better than using the apps built into the TV. TVs don't have the fastest of processors. So you get a faster interface, sometimes less ads, and an easier thing to upgrade later on down the road if you just use a separate device for the apps. Personal recommendation, if you have iPhones, use an Apple TV. For those that don't know, an Apple TV is not a television. It is a box that hooks up to your TV. But when A-being between the different options, Apple TV has the best picture and sound. And their home screen isn't filled with ads like the Roku one is. No. Yeah. So whether you use the apps built to the TV or use a separate device, either way, you're now using apps for watching television instead of like a cable box. So pros and cons, right? I'm not even on that part of the slide yet. All right. Let's circle back. So with those apps, there's a couple different types of services that are out there. More than a couple. There's a lot of different services that are out there. I divide them up into two main categories, right? You got your on-demand stuff, that's like your Netflix and your Hulu and Amazon Prime, where you go and you pick a show and then you watch that show, right? And then you have live TV, that's more like your cable box, where you pick channels and you watch whatever is live broadcasting on that channel. YouTube TV would be a live streaming TV service. And personal recommendation, by the way. Of all the different ways of watching TV out there right now, YouTube TV seems to be the best option, both cost-wise and reliability-wise. But a lot of people have multiple services for the on-demand stuff, and then one option for the live streaming side of things. So you'd have like YouTube TV for your live streaming, and Netflix, Hulu, Prime, whatever else you like for the on-demand stuff, if you choose to. The one thing to be aware of if you haven't made the change yet away from cable boxes, the thing that's going to take the most getting used to is there are no channel numbers on streaming TV services. Yeah. So you can't type in channel 903 or whatever it used to be to go to ABC. You have to go to the guide and choose ABC on the guide. The saving grace there is you are able to reorganize the guide so that all the channels you watch most frequently are at the top, so that you're not browsing through 5 or 6 different pages of guide channels trying to find the one station that you watch. There's a way to rearrange it. If you have questions on how, ask me later. It's in the app. But yeah, organize your guide. You'll like it a lot better. If you're making the change to a streaming service from a cable box, don't judge it in the first week. Anytime you switch to something that is very different from what you're used to, you're not going to like it. Give yourself time to get used to it and then judge. Wrong way. All right. Who can't hear what people saying on TV? Like everybody, right? You want to know why? All right, so pretty much almost everything nowadays is broadcast in surround sound. Whether you have a surround sound system or not, the show that you're watching is still broadcast in surround sound. If you don't have a sound system and you're just using what's built into the TV, all of that surround sound is coming on 2 little speakers on the back of the TV, all getting mixed in together. Right? When something is encoded in surround sound, typically, there's several different formats that are out there, but typically there are 5 separate speakers it's encoded for. A front left, a center, front right, surround left, surround right. Sometimes more, depending on what you're watching. But they all have one thing in common. That center speaker that's meant to be there by your TV is where all the dialogue comes out of. So when you're watching it in the movie theater or you're watching it with somebody that has an actual surround sound system, that's all the dialogue, and that dialogue is separated from all that other noise that's happening, right? When it's not separate speakers, all that dialogue and all that extra noise is coming out of the same thing and getting muddled up and hard to understand. So if you have a surround sound, you can bring that dialogue up louder than the rest of it and make it easier to understand. You could turn it way up compared to the rest of it if you wanted to, and hear only dialogue. But you have options. Even if you just have a sound bar, it's still better than using the speakers in the TV. A lot of sound bars that are out there, not all of them, but a lot of them do have the option for dialogue enhancement. That helps bring that dialogue out more. If you have Sonos, it's in the app. When it's on the now playing screen for watching TV, bottom right corner, I think it is, there's a little icon for dialogue enhancement. That in itself will make it easier to understand. Surround sound would be the best, but that doesn't fit every room. Sound bars can be a lot better than what the TV speakers are. Questions?
Any questions? Oh, here we go.
Excuse me. To rearrange your channels on YouTube TV, I've never been able to do it through the app. Do you have to do it through your computer, or can you do it through the app?
You can do it through the app on your phone, not the app on your TV.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And it can be done on the computer too.
Is it possible to use a sound bar for the front 3 speakers and then like wireless Sonos speakers behind for the other 2?
Yes. You specifically said Sonos, so just...
Well, I just use Sonos a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Sonos, but...
The only thing I was going to point out is just it does need to be the same ecosystem. So if it's a Sonos soundbar,
right,
Sonos wireless speakers in the back.
Okay.
They also have the option of using a Sonos soundbar, and then like if you have in-ceiling speakers in the back, you can get a Sonos amp.
Right.
And that can
okay.
pair up the same way.
And it can control 2 speakers easily, 1 amp.
Yeah, it would still yes, 1 amp for the 2 rear speakers, and it would be configured as the rear speakers for the sound bar. So it would still show up in the Sonos app as just one room, and it would just work as one room,
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
Hey.
The other way is an actual like surround sound receiver, and there are sound bars that are just speakers, like no electronics in it. It's just 3 speakers in a bar. So if that's the format that makes sense for the room, those exist. If it doesn't make sense to have like bookshelf speakers sitting off to the side or in ceilings or whatever for the fronts. We usually, they're called sound bars too, but I usually separate it by saying speaker bars for ones that are just speakers and sound bars for ones that have the electronics and everything built in.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah, oh, that was easy. See, that's why we're not just the speaker guys anymore, because there's not as many people that care about the speakers anymore. All right. So all this different smart home stuff. Door locks, thermostats, security system, blinds, lights, and the audio video stuff. If we're not careful, that's 6, 7 different apps on our phones to control it all. And aside from being separate apps, that means they wouldn't necessarily talk to each other, right? So like if we wanted that door lock to automatically lock when we arm the alarm, they have to be able to talk to each other. And if they're separate apps, that doesn't talk to each other, right? So that is where what we would call a control system comes into play. Doesn't necessarily have to be anything elaborate, but you do need something that ties it all together. On the basic like DIY side of things, that could just be Alexa or Google Home or Apple HomeKit. You know, those are all 3 of those are cloud-based services that are generally free, and it's just a matter of picking the right devices. The downside with those is there's a lot of devices that work with it, but how well they all work together is largely untested, I guess we'll say. Because you could buy, 500 different Chinese video doorbells, and they're HomeKit compatible. Doesn't mean they're going to work great, especially with the other stuff in it. So my personal recommendation is when you are thinking about getting all these things, decide how you want them all to talk to each other first, and then pick the items that play best with each other for that control system. So If you're going Alexa, make sure you pick stuff that have been proven to work really well with Alexa. If you're going Apple HomeKit, pick stuff that have been proven to work really well with Apple HomeKit. The more you could stay first party, like the same company, the better off you're going to be, because you don't have to worry about, does this company's software change what this company's software is doing? Or this company updated something and now they don't work with this one. But staying first party on that DIY stuff, options are kind of limited. If you go Alexa, you could stay with Ring and Eero Network. Those are all Amazon-owned things, but there's not much to expand beyond that. If you look at a more professional type system, which is what we generally do, there's a lot of options for things that are first party, right? Obviously, it costs more, but it is a collection of devices that are made to work together. And one company to call to try to figure out if there's an issue, not Google Nest updated their software, and now that's not working with my Amazon Alexa. Two completely different companies trying to work together with each other. So putting it all in one system does mean that it can all work together. That would be that example I gave of like arming the security system and the lights automatically turning off if you're leaving the house, right? So that starter home I mentioned I had, fully decked out, when I armed my alarm, my door automatically locked, my lights automatically turned off, my shades automatically closed, my TVs and speakers automatically turned off, my thermostat adjusted to a comfortable level, and I think that covers it, right? And then when I came home, the opposite happened, right? If it was daytime and I disarmed my alarm, my lock would automatically unlock, my shades would open, certain lights would turn on. Sometimes I felt like having the TV automatically turn on, sometimes I didn't, so that just depended on how I programmed it. And my thermostat would adjust back, right? I didn't, in that instance, do anything with a separate app or a separate remote or anything. I just used my alarm like normal, and because the control system can see that that alarm was armed, it made everything else happen. So it simplifies everything and makes everything more convenient. And you still have the way of individually controlling the stuff, right? So like the question came up earlier on, what if the internet goes down? Well, I could still walk over to the security system and arm and disarm the security system. I can still walk over to my lock and lock or unlock the lock. I can still walk over to my shades and open and close the shades. We never want to take away the normal way of controlling stuff, but we want to add the convenience to it. So, like I said, on the DIY side of things, there's Alexa, Google Home, Apple HomeKit. There's some other options that are out there. There's Home Assistant, which is on the more technical side. But for most of you people, you'd probably be looking at one of these three if you're doing something yourself. You may already be messing with one of these three. Or you may be messing with all three and just hating it. Because you didn't pick the stuff to work all within one ecosystem. If you're starting from scratch and there's some budget to allow for it, choosing a system that is a more professional grade and things can stay a little bit more first party inside of it, you'll be a lot happier in the long run, right? There are several different ones that are out there. Control4 or Savant are two that we do. There's also like Crestron, which is actually what's running this projector system here. Let's see, there's URC, which stands for Universal Remote Control. There's one called Josh AI, which we do as well. There's several, but of the different ones that are out there, Control4 is one of the biggest. Crestron's one of the biggest for commercial stuff. Residential, Control4 is one of the biggest. Savant's another option that is pretty big as well, but more geared towards the luxury side of things. But both of these options, like Control4, Control4 makes dimmers that work directly with the system. They make thermostats that work directly with the system. They make a video doorbell or cameras that work directly with the system. We're able to buy all those different subparts from one place and one manufacturer, and it all works together. And I never have to worry about did this company update their software and now it doesn't work with this company because it's all one company. Right. Costs a little bit more, but it works a lot better. It's better in the long run. Questions?
Okay.
You use the alarm system as the trigger for the multiple devices. Is it required to be the alarm system, or could any device be the trigger?
It's not required. Any device could trigger something. The alarm system is just one of the more common, easy indicators of coming and going. But like, you can have door sensors without having an alarm system. It could be a lighting keypad that's by the door that has a goodbye button. You know, there are several different ways of doing it. Any part of the system could trigger anything else in the system. Alarm's just the easy example.
Chris, I have a question. If somebody's interested in using your services, do you come out to their house and kind of evaluate what they want to do, or how does that work?
Yes, do that on pretty much a daily basis.
Okay.
So yeah, if anybody's interested, happy to schedule times to come out, do a walkthrough. We don't charge for that. We'll just talk about what works best for your house, what your wants and needs are, and then kind of build a quote from there. Thanks for asking.
So I'll tag on to that comment. I bought a resale 10-year-old house about a year and a half ago. I used Connected Home for all my audio video, and they were fantastic. I was so happy with them. Everybody he brought in, they were all knowledgeable, and every time they did exactly what they said they were going to do. I even changed my mind a few times. Chris was fantastic. We took stuff out, we added stuff in from the original estimate, and it's a really good company. So I wasn't planted here in the audience.
Thank you.
I'm questioning that. Just kidding.
Which, by
Anybody
the way,
else? Oh.
No technology is perfect 100% of the time. Things will pop up. We pick things that we find to be the most reliable, but nothing's perfect 100% of the time. But like I said, we want to choose things that have proven to work best together.
Can you give us a range of what the potential cost would be for like the minimal, what would be the minimal, and what would be the ultra, and what kind of cost range are you dealing with? I knew you wouldn't like it.
That's a tough question. And because quite honestly, it's hard to put a cap on it if the budget's there. I want to emphasize that we do projects of all sizes, right? We do a job where we just come out and mount TV and we're done in an hour, and it's just an hour service visit. We do other projects where it's a full new construction, $250,000 with a $100,000 theater room in it, and everything's controlled. And then there's everything in the middle. There are lots of ways where that budget can get like way up there, and there's lots of ways to keep it way down. It just depends on needs, wants, and budget. Yeah. We don't necessarily have a minimum, other than when it's a service visit, like fix your ring. It's a 1 hour minimum. So we do those kind of service visits all the time.
Generators? Generac generators?
Yes, we now do full electrical. So thank you for asking that as well. So any electrical service visits, we can handle that as well. And yes, we are a Generac dealer.
Okay. Are you finding an increase in installing Generac generators lately at your business?
So the honest answer would be any Generac would be an increase because we are new to electrical.
Well, there you go. Okay. Well, I just wondered, tying that generator system in, I mean, obviously it would be either a whole house or partial house support system. But that, because obviously if we lose electricity, none of this is going to matter anyway, right?
Without some form of backup power, you are correct.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Couple points. I am new to electrical. My electrician is not. So there may be some questions here that I don't fully know the answers to, but that doesn't mean that we as a company are not fully capable. All right, so generators. There are generators as one option, and then there are also battery walls that are becoming a lot more popular too. There's pros and cons to both. The benefits of a generator are as long as you keep putting fuel in it, it will continue to work. The downside of a battery wall is when the battery's dead and there's no more power to charge the battery wall, the battery's dead until the power kicks back on. So a generator, people can get and have a big enough fuel tank and it can last a week or 2 weeks or more. A battery wall is probably going to be a few days at most. However, something a battery wall can do that a generator cannot do is be useful every single day. So a generator is only for backup power. You would never choose to run your house off a generator when given the choice because a generator provides very dirty power. Lots of little peaks and drops in it. Bad for all your stuff. A battery wall provides very, very clean power. Consistent 120 all the time, no peaks, drops. The ideal situation. When you have a battery wall and the right kind of control system in place, you can have it programmed so that during your normal everyday stuff, you're using the battery wall, and at night it charges. Or you could program it so that when the electric company is charging peak hour rates that are like 4 times the normal rate, you use your battery. And when it's not peak rates, you charge the battery. So you're never paying for peak power. You could have solar panels connected to that battery wall so that you're charging the batteries from solar and using that as much as possible and only charging off the grid when necessary and not during peak hours. You could have solar panels, a battery wall, and a generator. And the control system would use all those things together. The generator would only kick in when power from the grid is completely shut off for a long enough time that the batteries are no longer charging from the solar panel, and the generator kicks in just to charge the batteries, and then you're back to using solar and the battery walls. You can have devices tied to that are installed in your breaker panel to automatically turn off parts of the house that aren't needed as the battery drains. So like with a generator, you usually choose what parts of the house are on the generator, and that is hardwired that way. And changing that means completely rewiring, and it's a mess. With the modules in the breaker panel and something like a battery wall and the control system, you can have the whole house on there. And you can say that when the battery range is from 100% to 90%, use everything. When it drops below 90%, turn off these things. When it drops below 75%, turn off these things. When it drops below 20%, only these like key essential things, so that you can get the most out of it and still have everything connected when you are able to. So a lot of cool stuff that can be done there. And what's that? Well, the generator is still going to be the cheaper option. They're 2 different technologies, and the battery wall has more flexibility with the rest of the house, and like I said, you can get more use out of it because you can use it every single day, but it is a higher cost.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris, for a great presentation, and thank you.
How was that timing? I think that was my last one. I did. Yeah, that was perfect.
And thank you for all the great questions. We would remind you that the presentation will be on the internet, the Nest website. And we would just ask if you have a few minutes, if you could fill out the evaluation form that's on your seat. Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.